Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Northern New England chapter of SABR. And tonight we have a very special guest. Joining us this evening is the president and general manager of the Portland Sea Dogs, Geoff Iacuessa. Geoff's been with the Sea Dogs going all the way back to 2001. Hired as director of group sales prior to the 2002 season, Geoff became director of sales and promotions in 2004. In 2006, he became the assistant general manager for sales and promotions, moving up to president and GM in 2018. Geoff is a graduate of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst with a degree in sports management. In addition to his work with the Sea Dogs, Geoff serves on the People's Choice Credit Union Board of Directors and the Maine Children's Cancer Program Board of Directors. He previously served on the board of the South Portland American Little League and coached youth and baseball and basketball too. I'm out of breath just thinking about all of that. Geoff, I want to let you know it's a treat to have you here tonight. Thanks for coming.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I can't thank you enough. I'm just going to sit back. I've done my thing, man. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to let you preview the 2023 season up at Hadlock Field, and we're going to see how well these guys can pepper you with questions like they did to Mike down in Manchester a couple of weeks ago.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, if it's all right with you, what I'd like to, I'll talk a little bit about the Sea Dogs, if that's okay, and then just tell you a little bit. You kind of just got my background, but I find these things work great with questions and that I can answer. And if I don't know the answer, I'll try to make it up or get you as accurate of information as I can. As Bruce mentioned, I'm the president and GM of the Sea Dogs. Been here since 2001. Started as an intern in 2001. They got hired after that, prior to the 2002 season, and really have been here since. We, as an organization, have actually just gone through literally 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago, officially a sale. So we started in 1994 as the Florida Marlins affiliate by Dan Burke, and Charlie Ashback came up. He had been the Eastern League president. He came up to serve as president and GM. And we've been in the Burke family the entire time up until just about 2 weeks ago. And so it was Dan and Charlie started it. And then in 2008, Dan's kids, both Bill and Sally, became involved as Dan's health was kind of declining. He ended up passing away in 2011. And they've been kind of the stewards of it since. And for a variety of reasons, both family and business reasons, the Burkes have moved on, and we now are owned by Diamond Baseball Holdings, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. They're up to 13 minor league teams, and they're hoping to continue to grow that number, which is really an exciting time for us. It's one of the things that people have often asked me is, where do you go from here? You're the president of a AA team. Do you go to AAA? Do you go to the big leagues? And I've always felt pretty strong about staying here as long as it continues to be a challenge for me, which it is. And we had such great ownership with the Burkes, and I think Diamond's going to be that way as well. Diamond is an incredible organization. Like I said, they've bought 13 teams, and they're looking to add, and I think they'll add some more probably before the season starts. They really see the future and the promise of investing in minor league teams and the future growth that's there. We've, as an industry, just seen tremendous growth, really, really starting in the early 90s. And some people will kind of attribute it to the strike of 94. Some people think it might have started a little bit before that, but really since that time frame, minor league organizations have grown in popularity, different from the days that we were talking to before we kind of got this presentation started of the 70s and 80s, where the ballparks weren't great. The crowds, the local support might have been 500 or 600 fans a game, whereas now we're averaging close to 6,000 fans a game. And so Diamond sees this as a future, a lot of ability to grow in the future. One of the most important conversations I had with them when I was deciding if I wanted to stay was, what are you going to do to our organization and our fan experience? And they said, absolutely nothing. We want you to keep doing what you do. We understand that teams are run locally, and what works in Portland is going to be different than what works in our other markets. We're going to share and collaborate on best practices and ideas. And if you can incorporate it into your business, that's great. But if you can't, that's okay too. And that was really important to me because, we've really established ourselves, first through the first 9 seasons as a Florida Marlins affiliate. And then when we switched to the Red Sox affiliation after the 2002 season, since then as well, that kind of took us to a different rung of the ladder. but we were very successful before that. And a lot of that goes to our front office staff and our game day staff and the people that we have and employ here in our focus really on customer service. And I stress it all the time with our staff that we're a want, not a need. You want to go to a Sea Dog game, you need to go to the grocery store. And we need to keep that in mind as an organization. And luckily Diamond supports that, when a fan comes to a game, we often say, we're a baseball team. Everybody knows that. And if you're a baseball fan, you're going to want to come to a game and see the top Red Sox prospects or the top visiting teams prospects and do that. And that's okay. We've got a lot of fans that do that, but there's a lot of other reasons we try to create for folks wanting to come to a game, including, just the atmosphere, the customer service, the food, the promotions, anything and everything. So we always kind of talk about, if you've got like a family of 4 or a group of 4 friends, if somebody says, hey, let's go to the Sea Dog game, everybody kind of has a different reason why they're drawn to coming to the game. And that's really important to us in our business. And I think you see that really throughout minor league baseball in trying to connect with that customer service aspect. We're lucky at being in New England and being a Red Sox affiliate because, as you all know, Red Sox fans are passionate. Red Sox fans know who the up and coming prospects are. So it makes it a little bit easier to follow. And then after they kind of quote unquote graduate from us and go up to Worcester and they go up to the big leagues, it's easy to follow. But, even going back to the Marlins days, we had some really good prospects, some top talent come through here, and our fans would continue to follow them as they continued their careers with the Marlins and throughout the big leagues. So, for us, it's extremely important to create the environment and the atmosphere and the desire for fans to want to come to the game. And I always brag because we're one of the smallest markets in our league, yet we're always close to the top in attendance. And it's really the fan support, the way that the community has embraced us. And we're lucky for that. We don't ever take that for granted. I think probably everybody has an understanding, but just to go over it real quick, we're the AA affiliate, so we're kind of 2 rungs below the big league team. AA is kind of known as the prospect level, so to speak. And prospects spend a lot of time in AA, typically maybe not as much time in AAA before they head up to the big leagues. The Red Sox control all of the player, all of the player movement and player decisions. We handle all the business side. So I always say, like, kind of between the lines is the Red Sox, outside the lines is us. And there's a little bit of overlap here and there that we work together with the field staff and the player development staff, but by and large, that's kind of how the operation functions. So for us, going through the ownership change, it's been a big step. I think it's going to be a great thing for our organization. I think Diamond's going to bring a lot of investment into the operation. I think many of you may be aware that MLB took over the operating of kind of the oversight of the operation of minor league baseball back for the 2021 season. And a lot of that, what they're trying to do is making sure that facilities get up and there's a facility standard that all the teams need to be at, just so there's a consistent product for the players in the development process. And that when you go to a ballpark, the home team, the visiting team has similar amenities everywhere you go. So locker room space is similar, batting cage, access to batting cages is similar, all those different things. Because, for a while there's, at the time there's 162 teams. Now we're down to 120 teams. Part of they're taking it over. They actually eliminated, they ended up eliminating 40 teams. And then there was 43 teams, but they brought in 3 independent teams. So it was a net of 40 teams to be eliminated. And so right now their focus has been on making sure that we get up to standard, which we've got a few years to do it, in having facilities that are consistent throughout the game, which I think is going to be a great thing, not only for the business side, but also obviously for the baseball side. So for us, day to day, that's a big part of what we're doing. Is luckily our stadium is pretty close to compliant. There's some things we need to do and take care of. So we're putting the work in to get that going, and then continuing just to support the Red Sox and being able to develop their players in a way that's good for them. And I know, they've always been a great partner of ours. Their folks are great. I always joke with the player development folks that they could probably start a human resource firm if they didn't work in baseball, because the people they hire, the coaching staffs, the players are all high caliber, high quality people. And that just makes it a joy to be able to work with them on a day-to-day effort as well. From the business standpoint, as a staff, I always kind of equate the season to running a marathon. that opening day is the start line and the last game of the season is the finish line. And the harder we work during the off season to put ourselves in a position for success, to quote unquote train, the more success we're going to have in season. So really, as soon as the 2022 season ended, we turned the page pretty quick and start planning our 2023 season. And that's what we spend our off season working and putting together, the various promotions and different things that we do. We work pretty hard throughout the off season to make sure that we're starting on April 6th, our opening day, in a good position to be successful, and to be able to be in a position that as you get hiccups throughout the season, you're able to take care of them, as opposed to kind of falling behind because of things that come up that either, you can't anticipate or something that you might not have anticipated. So a lot of people have said to me through the years, oh, last game of the season, you guys just must, head home and show back up right before the season starts. And it really isn't. It's a year-round job. It's a year-round position, and really takes a lot of planning and coordination to be able to pull off. We're putting on 69. We have 69 home games. We're putting on 69 major events throughout the summer in kind of groups of six game homestand. Sometimes you got a 12-game homestand during that time. So it's really imperative for us as an organization to make sure that we're working as much as we can during the off season to create what it is we do in season. And that's another piece to the business side too, is we're open for 69 days. We're here year round, but we have 69 days to kind of generate our revenue that we need to support the business for 12 months. So our expenses go for 12 months, but our revenues, really the lion's share of them, come in based on those 69 games. So that's a really important thing. So if you get some rainouts, which we inherently get, that can really trip you up and make the difference between a good season and a bad season. You go back to 2020, where we lost our entire season due to COVID. Everybody did. We still had, a lot of our expenses. I tell people we had about 3% of our revenues just through different things that we did during that year to try to create something fun for fans. And we still ended up with close to 70% of our expenses. So it kind of gives you an idea. That was a challenging year indeed. But luckily we were able to get back at it in 2021, and 2021 was a great year, all things considered, with the delayed start and fewer games and the COVID restrictions to start. And then last year was just an outstanding year for us as well. So I think that the future, we're excited for 2023, and the future's really bright for us as far as 2023 and beyond goes. This is one of those things I could go on for hours on end talking about us and our organization, but I don't know if now is a good time to start with the questions, or if you want me to keep going.
Whatever everybody sees fit. I'm leaving this very open for everybody this evening. So if you've got questions, shout them out. If you want them to keep going.
Yeah, Geoff, I'm interested in the rule changes that will now be in MLB that you guys have experimented with. I mean, I'm curious, did you survey fans about how they liked it, or what is your manager and coaching staff saying, and what kind of fiasco will we expect in spring training of people getting used to the pitch clock and et cetera?
It's a great question. And that's been one of the unique experiences too, that MLB has done with us, as far as testing out various rule changes that they're looking to do at the major league level. And one of the things that, and this is going to be a long-winded answer, so I apologize for that, but one of the things that I think as somebody, I've got a 15-year-old son. I coach Little League, I coach basketball. I understand the attention spans of kids that as they're growing up isn't quite the same as probably it was when I was growing up. And I think that goes for adults too. I'm not just singling out kids, but you're trying to develop fans and future fans. And I think we went through a long stretch where games are 3 hours plus at the minor league level. And obviously we all know Red Sox Yankee games last a long time, and just that kind of downtime. And I think one of the things Manfred keeps saying, and Theo says as well, because Theo's been helping out with this, is they're trying to pick up the pace. So they're not necessarily trying to shorten games to a certain target. They're trying to just make sure that there's action going on and balls in play, whether it's being pitched or hit or what have you. And I think the pitch clock has made a huge difference for that. We've all probably seen games where it just takes forever for the pitcher to get the ball and throw, and or the batter to get into the batter's box. And I think it's been, in my opinion, I think that's been a very good tool to helping keep the pace going in the game. I'll tell you right now, there's going to be upset hitters and upset pitchers when they get an automatic ball or an automatic strike, and it's a little funky when that happens. But it's a good reminder. And I've talked for years with pitching coaches and player development folks, and they all say the same thing. Like, you're trying to teach these guys to stay in a rhythm and get the ball back, get your sign and throw. We all do it. Like, if in our daily life and what we're doing at work, if you're kind of taking a lot of time between tasks or during a task to do it, you just get bogged down. And so that's one of the things, you hear from pitching coaches and things like that is that ability to just get the ball and throw and keep everybody in the rhythm and obviously keep the fans engaged, because I think it's very important for the future of the game to keep folks engaged. So there's going to be a learning curve. Luckily, it's been in the minors for several years. I don't even remember how long, but for quite a long time now, the pitch clock, and they've played around with the time between. I think that's going to be a very good tool as people get used to it. It's probably going to have some challenges in spring training. It's probably going to have some challenges early season. But I think as it gets incorporated, and I think we saw it at our level at the start years ago, it would frustrate people and people get upset. But as they've gotten used to it, and it's now at all the levels and people are accustomed to it, I think that's good. And I think it's going to help move the game along and keep the pace going, not necessarily, again, going for a 2-hour game, so to speak, but going to keep the ball in play and keep action going. I think I think that's probably one of the things that most people are going to see. I think that the pickoff one, I think, is a little bit more challenging to me. And we've seen it here, just because I think you get 2 attempts, and on the third you have to get the runner out, otherwise it's a balk. That's there is some strategy to that. And if you're a base runner, if you can get the pitcher to throw over twice, the advantage certainly goes into your court. So I'll be curious to see. We haven't had too many issues with it at our level. Obviously, with David Hamilton last year, broke the stolen base record. I don't know that he ever had one for our franchise. I don't know that he ever had one actually on that, what would have been that third attempt. Guys certainly checked on him, but he's a fast guy and he gets great jumps. So that's one that I'm curious to see how that will play out at the big league level, because guys use that as a strategy too. I mean, you keep the runner close, but sometimes you do that just to kind of compose yourself or see if a guy's going to square. Not that anybody bunts anymore, but if somebody was thinking about bunting, the couple times a year it happens. But I think that's one that's going to be interesting to watch. The bigger bases, I just don't think that has an impact one way or the other. I haven't seen it as much. And the shift is another thing that I'll be curious to see how that plays out. We've had that. We did have shifts here and there at our level that would do that, but I think that rule, I'll be curious to see how that ends up playing out as well. And one of the things that I hear all the time from fans, and you'll all probably understand this, is, well, if you got the whole left side of the field open, why don't you just hit the ball to the left side? And the challenge is these pitchers are so good, they can throw it wherever they want. They're not going to give you a pitch that you can take if you're a left-handed hitter, they're not going to give you a pitch that you can take to the left side of the field. So they pitch right into where their fielders are. And if you're going to make contact, you're probably going to the right side, speaking from a left-handed hitter standpoint. So, you can drop down a bunt and maybe the pitcher will field it, maybe they won't. But to try to take an inside pitch, a 96-mile-an-hour fastball inside to the left side is really tough to do. So that certainly has been an advantage on the defensive side.
I'm curious, did pitch outs increase because of no pickoff move? Because pitch outs have almost disappeared. And I was wondering if that changed because of the pickoff rule.
It's a great question. I would say they've increased, but not by a ton. But you definitely see them more, especially at our level. You didn't really see them too often, but you do see them now a little bit more frequently than you've seen them in the past.
Okay.
Didn't you also, though, have a significant increase in stolen bases?
We have.
I would think the pickoff would go with. The pitch out would go with that.
It does, so last year we had David Hamilton, who just flies, and he stole he broke our franchise record for stolen bases. I think he probably was going to get that with or without this record. I think you saw guys throw over, but they were mindful not to throw over a second time. That was one that you just didn't see it happen a lot where they got two attempts over and the guy was going to get a free base. I'll tell you now, Hamilton's going to steal the base more often than not anyway. But if you went 2 pickoff attempts with him, he was going to go. And for the faster guys that do that, that's definitely going to be impactful on the game.
Mhm. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Walt, I know that they announced today that the runner on second base in the 10th inning has now been made permanent. Once that was announced, I actually saw the entirety of the internet just burn down. It just immolated on my screen. I happened to be chatting with I shouldn't say I happened to be chatting. I happened to see a comment on Twitter by Scott Bush, our CEO, who said, "Am I the only one who's not really affected by this?" I don't see where that's something that a lot of folks should be terribly concerned about, but I've heard a lot about it. I don't know what fans in Portland or even in Manchester have said, Jeff, but what's the word on the street? Any word on the street about the 10th inning runner?
I'll share just my opinion. It has nothing to do with the Sea Dogs or anything like that. I'll share my opinion.
Okay.
And I get booed when I say this sometimes. So you all might boo me and it's okay. I've been booed plenty of times. I am of the opinion, and it's just my opinion, like I said, I've been booed by it, that if you don't win in 10 innings, that you during a regular season, you add a tie column to your thing. And the reason being
interesting.
The reason being is I don't like the kind of artificial fake runner just being placed at second base to try to settle a game. And it's accomplished what it's needed to accomplish. You don't have really 17, 18 inning games, and we've had those before. You don't have those, but it puts a lot of pressure, which is fine. It puts a lot of pressure on what I feel like is the home team. The road team, you're starting that inning off. You're getting that. You either bunt the runner over or you try to go for a hit, depending where you are in your lineup. More often than not, you see at this level, the first batter will bunt. So you're putting a lot of pressure on that home pitcher. You get the run across, and then it kind of flips it back to continuing the pressure being on the home team. I'm just not personally, and have never been, when they started talking about this years ago, it came up at the winter meetings a few times, and I've been booed by it. So I understand if you all want to do it. I just feel like the artificial, hey, go out to second base. You made the last out, hustle out to second base. We're going to start with you on second base. I'm just, as a diehard baseball fan, I'm not a fan of it. Not that I'm a fan of a tie, but I feel like, especially at the minor league level, I feel like, look, every sport except us has a tie. You wouldn't do it in the postseason because you need to have a winner. But to add that, instead of just, and I understand on the minor league level, you want to save pitching. If you get into a 15, 16 inning game, you're into position players. So now you're risking a guy's career that might not be used to pitching to get hurt. You end up the next day having to make pitching moves. So sending guys up from Salem or Greenville in our case to be able to backfill because of the guys who used the night before. It from a development standpoint, those games aren't great for the players to go through. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 in a week, and it would throw your pitching way off. So if your goal is to protect your pitchers and to continue to be able to develop pitchers to be able to pitch at the next level, then if you can't settle it in 10 innings in the regular season, I'd be more comfortable with a tie. But again, feel free to boo me. I've been booed before.
I agree with you, Jeff. I agree with the tie idea. I think that's a really good idea if you're going to do it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so antithetical to baseball. Everyone gets all uptight, but they do it in other countries. I mean,
in Japan they play 3 innings. They play 12.
I think it's like 12. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's longer for championships. But
on a similar note, do we know if they're doing the 7-inning doubleheaders? Was that just a COVID thing? Okay, good. I couldn't remember. But at your level, Jeff, still going to be 7-inning doubleheaders, right?
It is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came about, again, protecting pitchers. If you have two 9-inning games in a day, that's a lot. And we used to only have 23 guys on our roster. I think now we're up to 26, but at the time you'd have 23 when they first started the 7 innings. And so that's why they went to that. And that makes some sense too. The other prediction I made, and I haven't been right, and I hope I'm not, I think back in like 2005 or 6, I can't remember the year, it was right around there. I thought by 2030, regular season games would be 7 innings. And there's no indication that's going to happen. But at that time, I was just, all the focus on development and guys not going deep and things like that, I thought could happen, but it doesn't appear that's going to happen. So all good.
It's interesting. I've often likened it to, and I'm old enough to remember when both football and hockey had ties, but and they still occasionally have them. I think the Manfred Man, the Ghost Runner, whatever we want to call it,
Manfred Man,
reminds me of shootouts in the NHL or penalty kicks in soccer. I mean, it's not true competition. It's a little, hokey, but it gets you a winner, and it gets you a winner pretty quickly.
It does.
I just don't think anybody wants to, and I'd be fine with ties. I am not fine with 17-inning games, particularly because I think we are now seeing them finally limiting the number of pitchers that a team can carry on their roster. It's 13 in the major leagues, I believe. You have a couple. I think they moved today to try to reduce the number of position players pitching, which is a real abomination. We don't want 17-inning games are just not good for the sport, and they're horrible for the fan experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of my favorite games are 16 and 17 innings, but not every day.
Yeah. You mean like when Darnell McDonald and Chris Davis were on the mound for 3 innings apiece against each other at Fenway?
Well, I think the best game of all time was the playoff game with the Mets and the Astros. That's my view of the best, one of the best baseball. But you can't do it every week, but it doesn't happen every week.
We had 2 very long shutout 1-0 games in the playoffs last year that went on forever. And it seemed like no one was going to score. You could just hear the clicks going off across the country.
Well, perhaps one of the big reasons too is the educational factor of the Ghost Runner, or whatever we're calling it. Because Geoff, when I worked for you guys in 17 and 18, I think the first year it wasn't there, but the second year it was, and it was sort of like I would hear fans say stuff like, well, what's he doing over there? And then like once somebody explained it to him, they're like, oh, that makes sense. And then it was sort of logical, as Walt pointed out, a lot like a shootout or a lot like a penalty kick. Like once that clicked in their mind that that's what that meant, then it was sort of more intriguing for a minor league fan. We'll see if it, translates long-term at the big league level for interest. But I felt that once you got beyond the, horizon of educating the fan, that they truly kind of didn't really care after and sort of enjoyed it in many ways.
Yeah.
And there is a strategy to it too. I mean,
they're definitely
playing for 1 versus playing for 2 if you're the road team and all that.
Yeah. One of my fondest memories here of many was 2015. We hosted the All-Star game, and they said no extra innings, and no game had ever gone extra innings. And I remember the Milwaukee fiasco of the tie and all that at the big league level. So they said no extra innings, and the league president called me a few days before, said, hey, just so you know, no extra innings. If they do it, we're going to do this home run derby thing. And I was like, okay, sure. I had a million things on my plate, and I was thinking, whatever. So we get to the middle of the 9th inning and we're tied. And I was like, oh boy. So the league president comes down. I was like, can't we just do like one more inning, things like that. I'm thinking, so we ended up just getting it set up. The teams were aware of it and things like that. And the 9th inning ends, and I'm standing out the first base gate, and we're about to go out on the field, and the PA announcer is going to announce what the story is and kind of talk to the umpires and things like that. And all I'm waiting for is just a round of boos and people upset and going back to the Bud Selig Milwaukee Brewers or Milwaukee All-Star game thing. So we made the announcement, and there was like a 5-second like little bit of groan, and then I think it register with people, and the place erupted. And it was like such a fun way to, and it actually took longer than we had hoped, but it was a fun way to, and you wouldn't do that in a regular season game, but for an exhibition game, it ended up being pretty fun on a way to end it. And it was funny because the feedback was the way that it was done was that I think it ended up being the pitching coaches threw to the hitters, but you only got one swing. And all the hitters were like, that was pretty cool, but it's tough to go up and take one swing and hit one out. They were like, if we could have had three, it would have been a little bit different. But just a different way to end the game. But again, you wouldn't do that in a regular season game. I've always hate the idea of ties, but I've never been comfortable with the idea of just arbitrarily saying, all right, you go to second base and this is how we're going to do it. There is strategy that goes into it. And that will be an intriguing part at the big league level moving forward, is seeing how that strategy develops and how fans embrace that. If fans embrace that it's a different part of the game, similar to hockey shootout, and it's a different way to kind of manage, if you're a manager, that part of the game, it could end up being okay for the game as well.
I think the American Association went to a home run derby to settle games last year.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with the runner. I would have been more fine with the runner after 12 innings.
Yeah.
Give him a couple innings to settle this thing in the usual manner. And then you get to the top of the 13th. All right, put the guy in second. Let's all go home.
Yeah, and I've always said if you can't settle in 10, either end in a tie or maybe that's when you do it. You get 10 full innings to try to settle a game, and if you can't, then to me, that's at that point, that's okay.
I think in Japan, it's 12 innings, and if it's still tied, that's it. Everybody goes home. We'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you do play 162 of those games. A regular season game is very different.
A home run derby is more analogous to a shootout, right?
Yeah.
Penalty. I mean, that would make more sense in terms of comparing it to hockey, and whereas putting a guy in second for no reason doesn't really sit well with me. Just kind of distorts the whole concept to me. But
skating in on a goalie unopposed, it kind of skews things too.
That's more like a home run derby.
Yeah.
I know the American Association claims that their fans absolutely loved the home run derby to end the game. I'm not exactly sure how they did it. I don't recall the rules. I know they did it. I just don't know how the parameters. But I know they've said in the past over the winter that their fans loved it. They want to keep it up.
Yeah.
There's a college summer league team in Illinois that does a home run contest to instead of extra innings. The one game I went to, it was tied in the ninth inning. The 2 outs, they scored a run. We actually booed. We're all rooting for the home run contest.
I always root for the with the ghost runner to score and then the other team to tie it.
Yeah.
And go on. And I'd like to see it happen twice. Maybe once in the 10th inning, once in the 13th inning or something.
Yeah.
Maybe we get up to another 33 inning game someday.
Didn't that happen in Worcester?
It's happened at least once.
I think it happened in Worcester last year. I think I remember watching it on TV. It was the year before, but I really think I have to go back and look that up.
Geoff, if I could switch this a little bit. I'm in Maryland and I'm part of the Bob Davids chapter. We had, and I wish I could remember his name, but it was a top marketing guy from minor league baseball speak to our group. Oh, I want to say it was maybe the year before the pandemic. And I just like to, and I think it really does apply to the kind of job you have, but he cited, first of all, he said, minor league baseball teams don't compete with professional sports or the NFL game that's on that night or whatever. They compete with things like the movies and the circus and other types of, affordable family entertainment, for lack of a better term. And he cited a statistic that, I don't know if it's this way in Portland, but he said the vast majority of people who attend minor league games go home before the final out and don't necessarily care who won. If you could comment on that observation.
I would agree. I think that, so if we're playing a Sunday afternoon game and the Patriots are on, we'll have an impact on our attendance. You know, people will choose between when the Patriots were in their heyday, going to a Patriots game or coming to one of our games. That's usually late in our season anyway.
Yeah, sure.
I would say that it's accurate that depending on the night and depending on the game and depending on what we have going on, you will see folks leave between the sixth and eighth inning. I don't know that it's the vast majority. If it's a chilly night or a drizzly night, I'd give them that. I would say that a fair amount of people do. If we have fireworks, I don't think many people are leaving at all.
Yep.
I do think that and it goes back to that some people are coming to a game because they like baseball and they want to see a good game. But we've got a lot of folks that are coming just for a nice summer night out with their family, that they're going to see Slugger and they're going to get a Sea Dog biscuit and they're going to see our promotions and also see a game. So I think that's true. I will say I try to be down at the main gate as folks are leaving to thank people for coming. And you can see a little bit more of a spring in people's steps when we win compared to when we lose.
Oh, yeah.
But, at the same time, it's not like it's a bad vibe when we lose either. And I don't know that it's the majority, but I think there's certainly a lot of people that come. We've had some of our better attendance years when we've been in last place.
Sure. Yeah.
For us, a sunny day with a lousy team is still going to do better than a drizzly day with a great team. And I do think we do look at it like we do compete with the other, I think, outdoor activities. I think movies in the summer are tough unless it's a rainy day, but I think other outdoor recreation activities that families can do with each other, and that's what we strive to be able to, families or groups of friends or companies, things like that, as far as what they're going to do and spend their kind of recreation money on.
And affordability, I have to believe, such a huge part of that. Anybody who has kids, I mean, geez, I love, yeah.
It definitely is. And that was with Diamond coming in. It was another question I asked them early on is what about ticket prices? And they've just been adamant. Nope, we're keeping you the same. We want you to make the decisions at the local level and keep that affordable, because that's been our mantra from the start too. So our prices are remaining the same this year as they were last year. And that's it. It's another big driver. You can't price yourself out of it. Because folks have other things they could be doing, other opportunities they could be doing.
How much of an advantage do you have because of the fact that you're right on the ocean there? So you got the summer folks coming in.
I think quite a bit. I think Maine's vacation land, so to speak, and I'm going to speak. Sorry, Maine's vacation land, and we definitely see a good uptick in population. What's funny about that is that I vacationed here in the mid 90s with my family. I grew up in Massachusetts and vacationed here in the mid 90s, and we would go to Algonquin, which is, 35 minutes or so south of here. And I didn't know about the Sea Dogs. And so I always kind of try to remind our staff, like, we need to make sure we're getting out into those communities to let folks know that they're here. But I think inherently, anytime that you see kind of a bump in population or a bump in people come into the area, you're certainly going to draw from that. And then it's up to us to make sure that folks know we're here and folks know that we have games. But I definitely think that's very helpful to us to have folks coming into the state at that time of year.
Do you know what percentage of your ticket sales are people from Maine versus people from, Massachusetts or elsewhere in New England versus, around the country?
It's so tough to gauge exactly. I think, we typically go with like 70 to 75% are from Maine, which is a pretty significant amount. But the tough piece to it is when you come up to our window to buy a ticket, and it's probably about 1/7 of our ticket sales are folks coming the day of the game to buy a ticket at the window. To keep that process moving, we don't capture your information. You'll say, I need 2 adult tickets, 2 kids tickets, and we'll find you where you need to be. And we run it through quick because the lines can get long. So if we ask name, address, phone number, things like that to capture that data, our line you wouldn't get into the game till the 3rd inning. So that's always been our challenge, is figuring out a way to quickly capture that information, because you can't. So 1/7 of our tickets are coming in. Now, some of those folks are certainly from Maine. Some of those folks aren't from Maine. You could make the argument that some of those folks aren't from Maine and they're just stopping by to go to a game. But you could also make the argument that, well, if you're not from Maine, you're probably going to buy your tickets in advance. So it's so tough to gauge. And then we've got a great season ticket base, and obviously that's probably 95% in state. And those are the other folks that we have we don't really track. If you have a business with season tickets, we're not sure if you're giving those to your neighbor or a client from out of town. It's tough to track that data as well. So our best guess has always been about 70% from Maine and 30% from out of state. We certainly draw from Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. It starts to drop off when you get to Connecticut and Rhode Island. And then we certainly draw from other parts of the country with folks coming in, but that's a pretty small percent.
Geoff, what promotions and team rebrandings have been successful for you? Is that something you see as a big driver to get some revenue?
Yeah. So the team rebrands.
Yeah, I have my Whoopie Pie shirt on.
There you go. Our first one.
I like the red snappers the best. That was awesome.
Yeah, those have been great. A lot of fun for our staff, a lot of fun for our fans. And just to give a brief kind of overview, a couple times a year, the last several years, we've kind of done it. We started with the Maine Whoopie Pies, the Maine Red Snappers, the Maine Bean Suppas. So kind of iconic brands, iconic items that are for the state of Maine. We'll rebrand for a night, design a logo, wear the uniforms, and really promote it. And those have been extremely fun for our fans, extremely fun for our staff to be able to do. We'll always be the Sea Dogs, and we never want to kind of run away from that. But to be able to do those for one night, it just creates a nice buzz and a good atmosphere. Again, going back to having 69 games that we need to plan promotions for, it certainly helps those nights. So we've got stuff planned for this year, and we've actually got our plans for next year as well. The way minor league baseball does it, you got to get them in quite a bit, but quite a bit early. But they've been very impactful and helpful for us. Obviously helping with souvenir sales and generating interest for those games as well.
Any new promotions or anything fun this year that you can discuss today?
Everything's fun, but yeah, we've got bobbleheads continue to be some of our most popular promotions, and we're doing a Katie Crawl, who was a coach with us last year, our first female coach. We're going to do a bobblehead of her, and Bruce Cassidy, who's from Maine, and he's an astronaut. If you read his resume, it makes me feel like I've underachieved so much. He went to MIT. He was a Navy SEAL. He was an astronaut from Maine. We had him at a game a few years ago. He's a great person, and we're doing a bobblehead of him. And then Sedan Raffaella, who I think is going to be a tremendously impactful Red Sox player, and he's going to be fun to watch. I don't know if anybody was able to make it to a game last year, but he is special. He's a special player, and I think it's still flying under the radar, I think, for some of these prospect rankings, and I can't figure out why. I can't figure out what they see that I don't see, because he's been very good. We've got our rebrand, which we'll be announcing in March, which we think is going to be a lot of fun. And just, for us, we really kind of focus on on having something for all of our 69 games. So, our 80s nights are always popular. Our 90s nights are popular. The teal night that we do which is part of 90s night, is always really popular, because teals come back into popularity. It kind of comes and goes, obviously, but so, for us, it's just constant brainstorming and trying new things. Not everything we try is successful, but similar to the rebrands, once we try something, if it works, we try to run with it.
I guess one of the things that you're doing with us this year, if you don't mind, I guess I can debut this tonight. The chapter has been given 3 dates this year where we're going to have some discounted tickets. June 25th, July 23rd, and August 27th. Geoff and his crew has graciously given us some reserved seats at a discounted price that we'll be debuting some links for everybody very soon. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a nice big turnout and show Geoff that SABR means business when it comes to fannies in the seats in Portland this year. But I want to thank you really in front of everybody here for doing that for us. He's also, we're going to get a chance to spread the word about Sabre to Maine in June and August, if I remember correctly. They've graciously given us a table to sit down with folks and talk about Sabre. So I want to thank you, Geoff, for that as well.
Yeah.
That's just a terrific donation. I really appreciate it, and I hope everybody else does too.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you. I think it's a great group and obviously doing great things. And if we can connect you with our fans, I think that'll be good stuff.
Jeff, I just had a follow-up question. You were talking about how you guys had the whoopie pie insignia and some of the other ones. I know when they have those major league different jerseys, sometimes they do like a charity auction. Do you guys do anything along those lines for the local community?
We do, yeah. So we've got a bunch of them that we do. So our we do a Maine Children's Cancer Program Day, and those jerseys, they're Sea Dog jerseys, and it's actually, I think, probably my favorite one we do. We get handprints from some of the MCCP patients, and those are all over the jerseys. And so the players will wear those, they'll autograph them, and then we auction them off after the game for that. We do a Marvel one, which is one that we do in conjunction with Major League Baseball. So it's a Marvel character. And those, again, will get auctioned off. We did that last year for Strive, which is a great local nonprofit. And we do a Star Wars jersey, which we've done for years now. And those get auctioned off for Make-A-Wish in Maine. So those are the kind of the three main ones we do. The rebrand ones we actually keep and just use them the following season.
Okay.
But those ones that we do are all really good. One of the things that you got to be careful of when you do that, we think 3 is a pretty good number. If you do a lot of those and auction them off for charity, you start kind of getting diminishing returns as far as the charity goes. So we've got those 3 kind of ones. We try to spread them out. So fans are still excited and still interested in helping those various nonprofits. Like they're all really good and really important. The MCCP one with the handprints is always one that gets me.
That's really, really nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
My favorite one. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was going to say, when you changed from the Marlins, the Red Sox, did you notice an uptick in attendance or interest? Was there any change?
Oh, there's no doubt. We were extremely strong attendance wise with the Marlins, and when we went to the Red Sox, it bumped up, and we went for the 2003 season. So we like to take credit for the 4 championships that have come since then. You know, we're the lucky charm, we're the rabbit's foot, so to speak.
Modesty is your best quality, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you can't prove that we're not. So
that's a good point.
We kind of hit that timing really well with 2003. You know, tough way to end that year, but there's a lot of excitement obviously for the Red Sox. In 2004 happened and continuing on. So there definitely was, and I think it brought an awareness. You know, I mentioned earlier in the mid 90s, I'd come up here on vacation with my family and hadn't heard of the Sea Dogs necessarily, but I think it brought an awareness of our organization kind of throughout New England that yes, if you're going to come to Maine on vacation, maybe you'd look it up and try to go to a game. So it definitely helped. It helped our fans be able to track the players that were coming through here a little bit more easily. It helps certainly with rehab players. We've had Chris Sale the last couple of years, and Trevor Story, and just various guys through the years. It's helped with that. So it has been a wonderful partnership for us.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Here in Maryland, most of the I'm still trying to get over. I live 20 miles from Frederick, so I'm still trying to get over the death of Frederick Keys. But and I wasn't thrilled with some of the teams that were eliminated a couple of years ago, and I'll put Lowell at the top of that list.
Yep.
I don't think Lowell ever played before an empty seat in all the years they had a Red Sox affiliate. But how much? I mean, obviously, in your case, having a Red Sox affiliate in Maine is just tremendous marketing for the parent organization. Point out with the Orioles. The Orioles have Bowie here, and they've got I guess Salisbury is theirs too. But from you worked there in the Marlins days?
I did, yeah. Yep.
How much of that was? I remember seeing the Maine guides played Pawtucket back in 1986 at Old Orchard Beach. But I don't believe Maine had minor league baseball much longer than that from when you guys came in. Now, was there sort of a pent-up demand that you noticed, or?
I'll tell you, I think that, so the guides were here, I can't remember the years exactly, maybe 83 or 84 through like 88, 87, 88. That it was actually a challenge because of the circumstance. They weren't successful and they moved. They ended up moving to Scranton. Actually still that franchise is still in Scranton. And the way that it happened, the way that they left, and it, folks in the community and in the area felt, when Dan came to bring the team in, there was some challenges to overcome because of that, figuring that here's another team coming, they'll be here for a few years. And I think, the combination of Dan, Charlie, and Bob Ganley, who was our city manager at the time, who Bob was pretty motivated to make sure the city was cooperating to get the team in. I think the credibility that Charlie and Dan brought to the organization, and I'll give Charlie the lion's share of the credit because he had so much experience and he would be out in the community and such. It really helped because there was a lot of, and I wasn't here at the time, but I certainly heard the stories. There's a lot of skepticism amongst the public about whether this team was going to succeed, and you're only going to be there for a few years and you move on to greener pastures, things like that. It'll never work. There's a lot of people that felt that way, but Charlie really legitimized it from day one. And for me, and just because he was such a mentor to me, it was really just how he treated people. It was as simple as that. He treated people so well.
Yeah, he was the very first person I met with the Bristol Red Sox and I should point out, I'm a fellow Minuteman. When I graduated from UMass in '79 and started covering Wade Boggs and Bruce Hurst and people like that, Charlie Eschbach was the very first Bristol Red Sox employee I met. And as general manager, just a wonderful guy. I mean, and I'm not, whoever made the decision on the ownership level to bring Charlie into that group, to bring that team to Portland, deserves the gold star because
that was Dan. And the funny part about that is, and I'm probably not saying anything that could get anybody in trouble anymore, statute of limitations probably ended. Charlie was the president of the Eastern League and was on the expansion committee. And so it was during that process that Charlie and Dan really got to know each other. And Dan ended up saying, Charlie, if I get like everybody that knew Charlie, Dan really developed a great deal of respect for Charlie, and Charlie earned that from Dan through that expansion process. So at some point, as it was getting down to the wire, Dan had told Charlie, hey, look, if I get this franchise, I want you to come and run it for me. So it had conversations. So Charlie, towards the end of the expansion process, actually had to pull himself out and tell the committee, hey, look, if Portland gets this, I'm actually going to go work there. So he pulled himself out of the final kind of few meetings, so to speak. And, Portland got awarded the franchise, and the rest, as they say, is history. But
and for those of us who knew Charlie, it was only a matter of time before the Red Sox were going to move there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that too.
Yeah. And, it's funny because the ties, Dan was in the entertainment industry. He was the president of Cap Cities ABC. So he knew Tom Warner very well. So when we switched to the Red Sox, and obviously John Henry had owned the Marlins for a short time when we were a Marlins affiliate. So there was existing relationships and existing knowledge of us as an organization, but us as people that certainly helped facilitate that.
Yeah. Red Sox didn't belong in Trenton.
No, it's still a weird thing to think about. But
the funny thing is, a lot of Red Sox World Series heroes from my childhood actually played for the Sea Dogs as members of the Marlins, like Josh Beckett and Kevin Millar.
Yeah.
And Edgar Renteria, although not really a hero for the Red Sox in the World Series, more so helping
in
us.
2004 he was.
Right, that's what I mean. Not really playing for the Red Sox, but
he made the last out.
That's what I mean. He was playing for us, but still a hero. So that was cool growing up, is having that connection to, like, I remember the mark of delineation. I'm clearly the youngest person on this call, but it was like I think I was 7 or 8, and it was like immediately the Sea Dogs were the coolest thing in town because they were the Red Sox affiliate, and so that was a huge mark of delineation as a kid growing up.
And will work for us too. What year? 17, 18?
Yeah, 17 and 18. Yep. And so like I remember growing up and being a student of Maine baseball history and being like, just walking in, like seeing, these people that I had, like Charlie Eschbach, who I had like known of. That was pretty special. And you guys have done a lot for just like one of the favorite things that you didn't mention that I think the rest of the group might find interesting is when we would take the show on the road and go to the Little League events and turn the Little League games into a Sea Dogs game with the mascots and promotions and everything. That really, we talk about the next generation of baseball, like that laid some really important groundwork in the community for excitement as well.
No, that's great. And thanks for sharing that. And it's funny because for a long time, Portland Glass sponsored our foul balls. So if a foul ball went out of the stadium, we'd play a glass breaking sound and say, "Uh-oh, time to call Portland Glass." And as I was coaching Little League, foul balls would go out and the kids would say, "Uh-oh, time to call Portland Glass." It was like that is just genius marketing. And it's funny because they still sponsor us, but they stopped doing that several years ago. And I was like, I don't know if you want to do that because there's a whole generation of people coming up hearing that sound. Uh-oh, time to call Portland Glass. It was genius marketing.
Back in Bristol, that you could hear the real sound because they're 3-story houses literally right across the street from the first baseline.
Yeah.
Speaking of taking the show on the road, you got the Savannah Bananas to come into Hadlock Field this year. We're actually going. We bought a bunch of tickets to go up and see them, so that should be a good time. We'll be there for the Saturday game.
Nice. I'm excited to see them. I've seen them online and have got to know them. They're kind of front office guys pretty well, and I think it'll be a unique experience for our fans. And you talk about the different things like the run on second base and things like that. They're doing a lot of stuff that MLB obviously can never do, but it's still a great form of entertainment that centers around baseball.
Yep. Dick, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question about the stadium. Who owns the stadium in Portland?
So the city of Portland owns it and we lease it from them. So, and it's actually it's a great question because Hadlock Field itself has been here for a long time, like going back to the 60s and if not before. And you talk to like guys like Dave Littlefield, who grew up in Portland, had been a GM at the major league level, still works at the major league level. Like it's funny how many people from Maine played at this field even before it was our field. And even since then, I still run in. I talk to a lot of people, really throughout the course of the year who play their high school games here, either before we were in town or after, because now Portland has 2 high schools, Portland and Deering, and they play all their home games at our field. So it's the best high school field we think everywhere, but we're biased, but certainly the best high school field I think in Maine. And it's really kind of a treat. Portland and Deering get to play all their home games here, and then the road teams from the community around us that get to play here as well.
So you mentioned that you have to make upgrades in order to meet the new standard. So who's paying for the upgrades? Is Diamond paying for the upgrades? Is the city of Portland paying upgrades? Is the Red Sox paying for it?
Not the Red Sox. It won't be the Red Sox.
So we're responsible. We're responsible as the organization for making sure and paying for the upgrade. So we have been in discussions with the city about a lease extension, because obviously if we put all the money into enhancing the ballpark, we want to make sure we're going to be here. Hopefully the city wants us to be here and such. So we've been in conversations about what that looks like, and it is, it's one of those things that you're enhancing the city's property, so to speak, but it is for our benefit. And so it is our responsibility. As they said, it's not the Red Sox, not MLB. It's on the individual teams to make sure that we're in compliance.
Now, the Red Sox own Salem, correct?
They do own Salem. That's correct.
They don't own Greenville, though.
Nope.
No.
Or Worcester. Yeah. Yep. Salem's the only one. So Salem, I think the history on that was their single A team was out in Lancaster, California for a couple of years.
By the Air Force Base, yeah.
Yeah, and in Lancaster was a tough place to play. So Salem actually went for sale, and this was several years ago now. I don't remember what year, but the Red Sox bought Salem so they could move their single A affiliate to Salem because just geographically it made more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for Geoff tonight, guys?
Thanks so much.
Oh, I do have one thing. You were going to mention some of the players that you might have this year. If you could just speculate which prospects might be important this year.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have a pretty good team. I think there's a chance that, obviously it all kind of varies depending on what happens in spring training. Some guys play their way into AA, some guys play their way out of AA up to AAA. I think like Nick Yorkie might be a guy that if he has a good spring training, might start the season with us. If he doesn't start the season with us, he might be with us pretty soon thereafter. I think Matt Lugo, he finished last year with us. He's another infielder I think that we might see starting the season with us. Nico Cavadas, he's a first baseman, hits for power. He's out of Notre Dame. He finished last year with us. I think he's somebody that we're going to see. There's a lefty pitcher, Shane Drowan, that I think is going to end up probably being here. Willier Abreu, an outfielder, he came up. He was in one of the trades last season. I can't remember which one, but he was
Vasquez.
Yeah, Vasquez. He was with us at the end of last season. So and I think obviously the one everybody's excited about is Marcelo Mayer. I think he's going to probably start in Greenville would be my guess, and I think he's a guy that if he has a Mookie Betts type ascension through the system, we could see later on this year. I think more than likely it'd be 2024 just because he's so young. It drives me nuts, some of these ratings of that you read about with the Red Sox farm system. I do think that the farm system's in pretty good shape right now from what I've seen for us the last couple of years and what I know has been going on in single A. And look, at the end of the day, it's just how a guy is going to develop. Nobody hits on all their prospects, nobody misses on all their guys either. So I think we'll be competitive. I don't know that our pitching is going to be as strong as it was last season, but I think our position players are going to be able to hit. And, we made the playoffs for the first time last year since 2014. We had one of the best records in the second half in all of AA. And I think we'll continue to be competitive and see guys develop and hopefully go up to the Red Sox.
All right. Well, once again, I'd like to thank Geoff for stopping by tonight. We really appreciate it. I know I had a good time talking about what's coming up in 2023 in Portland. I hope you guys did too. I want to remind everybody that next week, Monday, February 20th at 7 p.m., my good friend Tim Haggerty is going to be joining us. He's going to be discussing his book, Tales from the Dugout, 1001 Humorous, Inspirational, and Wild Anecdotes from Minor League Baseball. Tim's been a play-by-play guy down in Texas now for years and years. He's got some fantastic stories. This book is coming out in paperback toward the end of March. It's a really great book. I think everybody's going to have a lot of fun listening to him, and hopefully everybody's going to enjoy it. But Geoff, thanks a lot.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Anytime you have a question, give me a call, shoot me an email, or stop by and say hi at the ballpark. We'll see you this summer, definitely.
You
All right,
bet.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.